your dreams trying to tell you something? Author M.B. Mosley teaches you how to decode your dreams and take hold of the manifestations that lay in wait for you in the waking realm. Now, broadcasting all over the world, it's the Dream Interpretation Podcast.
Hello there, Dream Zone Interpretation Tribe. You are now tuning into the Spiritual Sweet Spot Saturdays. Say that fast. I dare you, dare you, dare you. All right, guys, I'm so excited to introduce this session. It was impressed upon my heart because I felt that we are dealing with all things spiritual dream realm. So why not add little days like this? I don't know why the days have to be little, but why not add days like Saturday just to kind of get that refresher that will touch the center of our spirit. And I'm also excited to lead these sessions on Saturdays from a manuscript that I have had forever. You heard right, a manuscript. That's how much I love you guys. So.
All right. Welcome back, family. I am so excited to be back here on Saturday Spiritual Sweet Spot or Sweet Spot Spiritual Saturdays, however you would like to say that. I'm excited to be here. I am your host, author, and sister friend, M.B. Mosley, and I am so compelled and moved from the last session we had, and so I felt moved to add on to what we were talking about the last Saturday as we are acclimating into this new year and as we are embracing this new year, a whole fresh new start. And I hope that this podcast finds you and your family doing well. And so on today, we are going to add on to what we last spoke about, that we're going to build onto it, actually. So we started a great foundation there to Journey of True Self for 2021 with the first ingredient of it, which was what? Digging deep down into our heart and being honest with ourselves. And today we're going to build on that. We're going to be taking every Saturday session and building slowly on to our journey to our true self through the book of life, L-I-F-E, living in faith every day. And so for today, I'm also going to read another excerpt from Lao Tzu, Dao De Jing. All right, and this is true freedom. Which is better, fame or integrity? Which is more valuable, riches or good character? Which is more dangerous, failure or success? Overindulgence creates waste. Hoarding invites loss. The man who is content with what he has is not in danger of loss. The man who knows when to stop is free to go on. That is Lao Tzu's Dao De Jing. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so humbled. Thank you all. I was looking at the stats for the podcast, and I can truly say I appreciate each and every single one of you downloading the podcast and sharing the podcast. I'm very, 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 very humbled as we embark on our journey to true self in 2021. All right, so today I wanted to add another break onto this foundation. Last week we were learning about digging deep into our inner compass and searching deep down in our inner compass and our heart for those things that no longer serve us, and that means being brutally honest with ourselves. So let's add on to that conversation. So I thought it would be sufficient, I should say. I thought it would be sufficient today to add the topic of boundaries, right? So now we're digging deep inside our inner compass and we're like, okay, we're right here at the sweet spot. And so looking at the sweet spot, we got that 100% gut-wrenching truth of ourselves after looking at ourselves eye to eye in the mirror. And we're pulling some stuff apart and we're letting go of those things that no longer serve us. We're inviting those things that will serve us on this journey. And I feel it imperative that part of this parcel of the next step would be creating healthy boundaries. All right. So a might dreaded subject for some, but it is a necessary subject on this path of journey to true self. Now, most people or some people, does anyone? No, I'm just teasing. But sometimes the preconceived notion is that, right? It's kind of like an uncomfortable subject if you really want to kind of look at it, right? Because, and I say it's uncomfortable because getting into the adult zone, you feel like you move and you operate with things that people should kind of already know per se. So it becomes uncomfortable when you feel like you have to remind other adults around you of boundaries. But understand, as much as it may feel uncomfortable, it is going to be those things that are uncomfortable that are going to help us through this journey of true self. Now, what are boundaries? How do you create them? What do we do with boundaries? What is going on? All right. So here's the thing. What's the thing? All right. So I have created 4 quick steps here on us discussing boundaries, how you could set them and how you could go about it. So, of course, it's easy to set a boundary around a stranger you've never met. It's typically the people that are close and loved and near and dear to you that cross boundaries. Now, I'm disclaimer queen. I'm not saying every single person that's around you that loves you has crossed your boundaries or is crossing your boundaries. But typically, from my own experience, it's usually the people that are around you that love you the most. It's easier to sometimes, like strangers are not going to cross your boundaries, really. I'm just saying, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, depending on the situation. But it's very healthy for you when you dig down deep into your inner compass and you're now really just right at that sweet spot of honesty with yourself. Then the next step is to take a paper and pen and or write it in your phone's notebook. And the first thing you want to do is identify, what are your boundaries? Do you govern yourself to any boundaries? Perhaps maybe you don't have boundaries, and that is okay, for each its own. I am the type of person that, number one, I had to identify my boundaries. At one point in time in life, it felt really, when I found myself overwhelmed. And at this time, first I could give you an example that goes really far away, and then we'll bring it back in. But this was during the leadership era of my life, where employees, because I carried a work cell phone, felt like it was okay to always call me when we were not getting paid. Like, that was the biggest issue with me. I was like, this phone rings when we are getting paid, not when I'm off, not on my day off. I don't want to hear anything about the job. I want to relax. We pick up when we start getting paid. So because I found at first it was one of those things where you want to be in touch and you want to know what's going on. Remember earlier, one of my podcasts, I talked about the controlness factor of where I had to learn the hard way of just letting stuff go. Yes, but that was overwhelming. This is a prime example of it. And so at that point in time, I had to set boundaries. And when I would turn that work cell phone off Friday night after work, they started calling my cell phone number. No, ma'am. So what happened at that time, there used to be an app where you could get a secondary number. I got a secondary number on my cell phone, provided it to every employee. So that way, when I pulled up to my house on Friday night, I would switch off that cell phone number and still have the quiet time. I'm just saying, this is when we talk about, I understand this whole adulting thing and being an adult. Like, I'm one of those people that feel like, okay, should we be having this discussion? Like, no. No, I'm off, you're off. You could ask this question when we start back at work and we're getting paid, maybe. And so, sorry, leaned way into the microphone there. I do apologize about that. And so that's one of the first times I started to realize the power of creating boundaries. I was at peace. I was relaxed. And before that point there, that breaking point, it was 3:00 in the morning. I was getting calls about, I'm not going to make it to work. And I'm talking about, we were starting at 9 a.m. I'm getting a call at 3:00, 4:00 in the morning. And so now I'm waking up and my mood is already jacked up. Like, no meditating, no nothing before you leave the house. And ushering in all the good vibes. It's just like they're just gone. Like I've just been robbed of my morning. So that's when everything came full fold. I say these phones are switched on at 8:30 a.m. And whatever emergencies people have, you can leave a voice message, a text message. When the numbers they have are turned on, it will be dealt with according to operating times. And that is the first time I started to taste the freedom of boundaries. And I loved it so much that I started to actually identify. So now I was setting boundaries around my life and around everything else, so much so that sometimes in life it might not even be work related. When I started at the top of the podcast, it could be the loved ones that are around us. I have amazing siblings, amazing people around me, but once again, I'm still not a phone person. I can't be on the phone every day. So I had to set boundaries on that. So you identify. And the thing was, sibling, one of my siblings had this habit where it's okay. They wanted to talk to me every morning at that time. But those were the times that I wrote. So I had this whole thing where I get up, I got to do this, and I got to usher in just good vibes and all this other stuff. Then sit at my computer, make a cup of coffee first, sit at the computer, taking some breaths and all this other stuff and just feeling really good. And then the phone would ring, and like anything else, I was just always picking it up. But it wasn't an emergency at that time. And then come to find out, just the conversations were not so... where we were not building towers in Paris, and we were not building the next multi-million-dollar business anywhere in the United States. So the conversation sometimes will take a negative toll and then just kind of really put me in a funk. So when I get off the phone, I was just done, my focus, and I'm yeah, I don't even feel like writing right now. And so that was just draining me. So I realized, you know what? iPhone has created a do not disturb feature. Praises to that person who created that feature. They must have known about introverts. They must have known. I mean, they just must have known. And so, or they must have knew, I should say. But anywhoosies, so hello, do not disturb from a certain time to another time. And so I want to go to the next point, which is identifying the boundaries. More than least, you probably find yourself creating boundaries among people that are used to you, close friends and family members. But boundaries are being created. When you identify boundaries, you're creating healthy boundaries. What is serving you? Being honest to yourself. Remember, we're being honest to ourselves. What is serving you within these boundaries, right? No, you're not being mean and you're not isolating yourself from people. But if for my case, talking to somebody first thing in the morning brings down your morale or your vibes, or just sets your set, because the morning is the most crucial part. So if that part just sets you all the way crumbling apart and just, all over the place, then maybe it's advisable to set boundaries in those types of spaces. Also, understand when you identify your boundaries, right? 1. Number 2, you set them. You set the boundaries. You set your boundaries however you want. For me, it's the do not disturb feature with a text response. Thank you, iPhone. And then number 3, you're going to find that you will have to communicate with some people. For my sister, of course, I didn't communicate. She got the hint. Come on. It's, she's my sister. She's no love lost. It's just the way I'm going to answer my phone. That's just what I'm standing in. And so, but you find that some people you have to communicate. When I was part of this organization, I realized that they were demanding a lot of my time, and they felt like they could just call me whenever. And this is a 501c3. Okay, it was just like volunteer work. I'm not an employee full time. And these were grown people, the very respectful grown people. And I'm not saying that grown people should know better or grown people this, but I'm just saying I'm trying to tell you that I was really just baffled because I'm like, okay, yeah, no, we are not going to do this. So at that point in time, I had to communicate because this is why I'm here. This is my availability. I would prefer if you would call me in these times. And then when they call me, and I've been after communicating and they wanted to call and blow up my phone and everything like that. I've given you the times. I'm not picking up my phone like that. We have communicated these things. We're just going to hold that thought because it's going to lead me to after point number 4. So you're going to find yourself having to communicate with some people about your boundaries. Of course, you could be nice about it, be kind about it. You're not being rude about it, but you're protecting your sanity. Yes, these are things to coexist on earth that we have to do sometimes. So, and I realized if you don't protect your sanity, boy, oh boy, oh boy. And then number 4, once you identify your boundaries, you set your boundaries. Some people, you will have to communicate with them about your boundaries. Number 4, you have to execute your boundaries with consequences. You have to execute them with consequences. What does that mean? These are not harsh consequences. Okay. So for instance, with the organization, I communicated with them. They persisted to disregard my communication. Therefore, I didn't pick up until the hours that I said I would pick up. Okay. That was me executing. My consequences for that was then not, because it would have been easy. Like, oh, okay, let me just, cave in. You cave in. Oh, okay. They keep calling, or no, it wasn't an emergency. Trust and believe. It was just really an odd place because in most organizations, as you have noticed by now, and not just 501c3s, but whether it be at a workplace or just life in general, some people are going to be needy. Some people are going to be needy. Everybody, because every person comes with their own personality, and that's fine. But in this point in time, it wasn't like where I was we need you when we call you. No, that was not the agreement. Okay, I had an agreement, and I was holding to my end of the bargain. And so I was executing it, and my consequences were not, that's what I'm saying. The consequences don't have to be harsh. Like, oh, if you keep going. No, I didn't even have a dialogue with them after that. After a long time, they got the message. They tried, which leads me to when I said hold that thought, the final remark I want to make is identify your boundaries, set them, communicate them. Some people you have to communicate, execute, and some people is execute with consequences, right? And the last point I want to tell you is when you stand firm, you dig deep down inside your heart, you've discovered things that no longer serve you, and you're drawing closer and all pulling and are walking in the things that do serve you, and you have identified, set the boundaries, and you've communicated with some people, you're executing with some sufficient consequences for some, then understand that this is not always going to be easy as 1, 2, 3, 4. I was met with a lot of resistance and guilting. Like this organization would guilt me, and you'd have it was so weird and unprofessional. So show up and be like, well, we've been trying to call you. And I say, I know, I saw that. Our agreement that we talked about was da-da-da-da-da-da. Don't be afraid to hold people accountable, especially after you've communicated with them. Because that's one thing I'm still trying to figure out in life is wait a minute, did we not just have a whole conversation about this? But you're still okay. So I was yeah, I understand. I saw that in our conversation from the last time. And when you hold people accountable graciously and in all honestly, they didn't say anything. They were like, oh, okay, yeah, we forgot or whatever. No, they're testing. Amazingly, the way this life works, which I will never understand. I don't know what it is. They're you telling me, but we had a whole agreement. We talked about it. And so I reiterated it, and they don't say anything back. It's like, oh, our apologies. We apologize or anything. This is, oh, okay. Understood. Understood. And so, and I wanted to also say that was the example with the organization, but also don't let what you will find if you're setting boundaries from friends and families, they're going to be the ones to guilt you. They're going to be the ones to guilt you. And this used to be my favorite ones. The circle of people around me don't do this anymore because, I mean, you're just going to learn on your own, you know. And when I started setting those boundaries with that do not disturb, my family knows what time it is. They tell me the first times when I was setting these boundaries, because I was like, you know what, I need sanity, like, you know, because for each its own. Everyone for each its own. I take protecting my sanity and creating boundaries very seriously. One of the reasons is because you can have people in life that just want an information dump, and the information is so negative all the time. So how does that serve me? It doesn't. But rather, it just brings my vibration low. So when things are negative and the person's negative and they want to pull you down and the whole entire world down too, and the conversations are not serving, then I'm setting boundaries. I will take you in moderation and in doses, because I got to protect my sanity and my energy. And so one of the things, as I was saying, is most times it's your family, other than this weird organization, but other than that, family and friends will guilt you. My favorite one used to be like, well, I try to call you and it is my cell phone. And if I see a phone number calling me, I have the right to ignore it if I want to. Like, I was confused. Since when does it mean if you have a phone and it rings, you're supposed to answer it all the time? Like, I have not gotten that memo. It's my phone. I pay the bill for my cell phone. So I would have my friends and or family members that, you know, like, call out, see the phone. But if I'm doing something else that's priority to me, then I'm going to finish doing that. Because let me tell you something, the same people that guilt you do the very same thing. Do the very same thing. You try to call, oh, I was doing this and doing that. It's like they could run around and be free and do whatever they want when they want. But when they call, my sister will tell you my saying. She was like, she knows now. She's like, I know. She says, I know. My emergency is not your emergency. Right. Her urgency is not my emergency. Excuse me. Her urgency is not my emergency. Now, if somebody in the hospital texts me, call me, blow me up and let me know, but, you know, do the best I can. We're still thousands of miles apart, but keep me posted. However, you know, so at first, when I set those boundaries, my best friend was infamous for this one. She was like, it's cute when people remind you that they called you when you see the missed call. I called you, and I'll say, yeah, I saw. Because I'm not sure. Am I supposed to say, oh, I was going to call you back and tell you what I was doing? I'm not sure. I said, yeah, I saw. Because in part of holding myself accountable as well, and in part of digging deep to being honest with myself, I was weaning myself from that girl where every time I'd pick up the call when people call me, I would pick it up. And even like with my best friend in Canada, I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I missed your call. I'll call you right back. I'm using the bathroom. I'll call you right back. I'm eating a sandwich. No. I missed the call. I see it. I got eyeballs. I can read. And then when it's a suitable enough time, she knows. She doesn't call me out on it anymore. She doesn't say, oh, I called you. Because at first I was like, yeah, I saw. And then silence. Oh, okay. Well, and then she proceeds on what she wanted. And that's fine. And I'm not saying that. I'm just, one of my close friends says, you're just weird. Yeah, I could own that. But it's also a part of being honest with myself. Weaning myself away from the person that I was and the tendencies that no longer served me, and knowing the people that you deal with that allows you to create safe and healthy boundaries. If we're going to sit here and gossip or talk negative and all this other stuff, there's no need for me to pick this phone up expeditiously. Now, if we're talking investing, finances, money, and prosper in our lives, and or like talking about the next positive thing or whatever it is that we need to do collectively or whatever it is, then those will be the first calls I answer. the things that are going to serve me, the things that are going to serve my purpose and my path here as I on my journey to the journey of true self. I love my family. I love my friends. But there's nowhere in writing where that you should stop everything you're doing in life and always pick up and be, bombarded with all kinds of things, especially when you are focusing on certain things. Life is an amazing, amazing journey, because if you notice, most times in life, maybe it's just an observation of my life, but what I've noticed is that there's always now it's better because we've created boundaries. These years it's been wonderful. My phone barely rings, barely, because they're like, leave her alone, whatever, and that's fine. But if you know what I noticed, the observation was, anytime that it wasn't an emergency or it wasn't an urgency for anyone, it was okay to call in information, dump on me negative stuff that would affect my mood and just put me in all kinds of shape and whatever the case is. And I noticed that the calls I was getting, this is how I started putting some of these calls through the little filter, was also people that want to bombard me with all the negative information, all about them, their victimization and what's going on with them. Do you know, none of these people, when I used to sit back, when I was creating my boundaries list and chart and or favorites list for do not disturb, they were not calling to say, hey, I'm just calling to see how you are doing. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, tell me about it. How's your day? Okay, great. Okay. All right. Well, that's, just calling to check on you, make sure you're doing okay. All right. I'll, and even give me an opportunity to switch that kind of dialogue with them. No, it was just calling and just dumping, just, and then I told her this, and then she did this, and then they did this, and then they did that. And then it's no checking of how, so I was like, yeah, do not disturb feature is a wonderful thing that piled on, or that paired up with the favorites feature is an excellent feature. However, this is it, right? The journey to true self. Last week we talked about letting go of those things that no longer serve you, gravitating to those things that serve you. And part of grabbing a hold to those things that no longer serve you is creating healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are the boundaries that you set. Some you have to communicate, and some you just have to take action for yourself to guard your energy, to guard your space, to guard who you are. Some people have people that just show up to their house and you're tired of it. Or some people have just people that, there are some people out here that do not know how to guard other people's boundaries, that will cross that privacy bubble and be all up in your grill. There are people out here, and sometimes I once heard a wise person say, you got to teach people how to treat you. That doesn't mean it's in a mean way or in a rude way or in an unkind way. It's just that sometimes you're going to have to communicate. Sometimes you're going to have to show. You're going to have to show and rather than tell. And sometimes you're going to have to tell rather than show. I love you guys so much. Go ahead and create those healthy boundaries. It's going to be different. But honey, I love it. I love it. I wake up every morning, stretch my arms out, take in that breath, do my morning routine unbothered. Do you understand? Do you understand? And then start off on a beautiful day. Beautiful day. Beautiful day. Set my whole entire intentions for my day, and it's just beautiful. Phones quiet, nothing in the background to interrupt. I love you guys that much, and I know you can set those healthy boundaries. If there are people that are superseding the boundaries and don't understand and or get the clue, go ahead and set those healthy boundaries so that we can continue on to this journey of true self. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Life is happening right now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but today. Seize the moment to enjoy each day while en route to your intended destiny. A quote by Memory Ben Gessemer. If no one has told you this today, I love you. I appreciate you. And yes, We can do this thing called